think there was much more room for them to have kept, especially WrestleMania, as a pay-per-view only. Because I think if there's one show every year, Matt, that would have somebody forking out the money, if you're a die-hard wrestling fan, WrestleMania is the one you buy. I mean, if you don't buy them all year long, fair enough. But a lot of fans, Matt, tend to come back for WrestleMania. That is the one that generates the most buzz. It's out there in the media. And so, having everybody subscribe to the network for it, I'm sure is great. But I think they could probably reach further if, as good as the network is, for the more casual fan, would probably invest still as much. So I am surprised about it, and I do think they could have made more money up on it. But obviously WWE themselves know what they're doing. I'm not going to question it, but I do think that sometimes I do look at the network, and I think we may have a similar question coming up later, but I do think that they put out maybe more than they should, really, and then they've kind of overdone it for desperation of trying to get everybody covered so that you can get on the network. So yeah, maybe that is true. Okay, Matt, let's roll on through the next questions. We've now got a question. Let's go from Gavin Ross from Cleveland. How do you think the network is going in general? Yes, this is the one I was talking about. I read that WWE showed them. Sorry, I read that WWE showed them. Not sure this is making any sense, but I'll try and make heads or tails. I read that WWE showed their subscribers watch more original programming than the huge archive pool that they own. Why do you think fans choose to watch more original content than old archive stuff? Matt, it's a hard answer to give that one, but in general, I mean, yourself, do you find yourself watching more of the original content that they put on there than the archive, the huge, massive archive they've got?
I would put myself in that category. I think the main reason behind this is, funny enough, is that the archive stuff. To be blunt, I've seen it.
Yeah.
I have seen it in the past, but the new stuff I haven't. And as much as I do love the old stuff, and there are some times when I want to go back and watch some things, because obviously you can't remember everything, for which your brain would be like an encyclopedia of wrestling. So yeah, I do like to go back to it and visit sometimes, but I just find the original content's up to date. We're talking about it week in, week out, particularly on here, we're talking about it, and there's bits that we can add. So if I've got a spare sort of hour or whatever, I think I'd probably prefer to sit down and watch some original content that's quite up to date, rather than going back and then, there's not many people I can talk to about it unless I have to specifically talk to them and then tell them that they should watch it as well.
Yeah, and from my end, in fact, funny enough, I've actually... I literally made effort to watch WWE Network, and I actually messaged Matt quite a bit that I'd gone through a lot of the stuff that I'd kind of just browsed at first, maybe watched one episode of and got bored. I put more effort into it, and I have to say I did enjoy it more, but it was mainly the original content. It was I went back to Camp WWE of all things, and I thought I really got fed up after the first two episodes, and I was like, this is not my kind of humour. But I have to say, I watched the rest of them, and I was much more drawn to it. There's only 5 episodes in general, but I did watch them all because it got more funnier. I don't know why they didn't release some of the stuff earlier, but the Vince McMahon character especially is very funny, and they focus very heavy on him. And because I know Vince McMahon himself, I think it makes it that much more funnier that it's him doing it and his voice in it. So that was better second time around, and I'll watch the sort of DVDs that go up there. Like I found myself watching Jerry Lawler's, which was an excellent watch, and I really recommend to anybody to go on that. I also watch JBL's Legends, where he does interviews. So yes, I mean, by and large, I'm watching the original content. In a way, Matt, you look at that huge archive library they've got, and they've not only got WWE, you've got WCW, ECW, you've got all a lot of the territories, the AWA and Smoky Mountain, all that's there. But it's kind of wasted, Matt, because I feel like they've just chucked it there and just left it. I think what they probably should have done is they should have, I don't know, Monday is your AWA day, Tuesday is your World Class Championship day, and you kind of like, you air an episode and then it gets stored in the archive straight after. So, you know, you're getting a kind of new, even though it's an old content, you're getting a fresh one that isn't permanently up there. It's sort of like going out exclusive every week, and then you're building it up. And, you know, you might get more following with doing that. But when it's just kind of all just there, I know it's great that it's just there, but I don't think fans are going to suddenly go, well, I want to watch Raw from, I don't know, 94, April, whatever, you know, like out of the blue. I don't think that's going to happen. And, you know, where have you got the time to watch, to go through that lot and start over again? I don't know. So it is an interesting one. Matt, do you think it's down to the way they've just put this out, and do you think actually a lot of it is a little bit of a waste that it is there the way it's put up?
Yeah, it is a little bit, you know, because they have just sort of lumped everything together and gone, there you go, there's your WWE, choose what you want.
Yeah,
it would be a little bit better with a bit more structure. Otherwise, you've got to do what we're going to do and just jump into it 20 years back and look and go through them one by one, which we will do. You know,
well, we're going to say that.
At least it will get some use.
Yeah, well, from us. Thank you for the question. This is from VR, interesting name. Cruiserweight 205 Live now was announced. Does this mean WWE have failed with the division for the Cruiserweight division on Raw? Your opinion. So, I mean, from my take on this, first of all, what's happening, from what I understand, Matt, they're going to have the commentators were announced. I think it's Corey and Morrow, isn't it? Which is a great commentary team. But again, I will say that it doesn't do a lot for the Raw and SmackDown split, really. I will say that much. But never mind. That's a dream team come together for me. Poor old Corey's going to be doing a lot of stuff now. I will put that one out there. Blimey, he's busy right now doing all these shows. But from what I understand, Matt, they're literally gonna do the Cruiserweight on the back of a SmackDown show. So those that are in the audience on a SmackDown are gonna have that go on straight after. I don't know how that's gonna be. I don't know how that's going to go down in front of a crowd that's just watched SmackDown. You know, I don't know what the atmosphere is going to be like then to watch Cruiserweights. I just don't know. And at the moment, I don't have as much enthusiasm for it as I first did coming off the Cruiserweight Classic, because I kind of wish they didn't do the Raw thing and they just went to this straight away, or they just left it on NXT or something. Because at least in Florida, that crowd, they're used to it. And, you know, you could have just booked another day for fans to come down and do that, or even do it on the back of an NXT taping, you know, that sort of thing. So, Matt, what's your take on this? And is it now inevitable that Raw's going to give up on this?
It's always looked a bit flat on Raw. I don't think it ever really took off. I don't think it ever really had the 100% backing that it should have. Coming off of that Cruiserweight Classic, it was red hot, you know, the Cruiserweight division, and I think they should have backed it a little bit more. I'm not sure what it is that happened on Raw, but it just never felt like it had the 100% backing. And putting it on the back of a SmackDown, I'm not so sure that's a good idea either. Just like you said, because you know, it almost feels like a different kind of fan. Because when you look back at the Cruiserweight Classic, you know, everyone was. It was very close and very personal, wasn't it? And it was very sort of almost like an indie kind of vibe to it. And then everyone, despite these wrestlers being from all different corners of the globe, people were into them and they looked them up and they picked out their favourites, you know, and people had a genuine interest. People going to SmackDown might not necessarily have an interest in the Cruiserweight division. I would go with what you said, just put it in Florida and probably do it on an NXT or something.
Yeah, I think for those people wondering if this could have ever worked on a Raw, I would say yes, it could have. Because if you go back to WCW Nitro, when they introduced a lot of the Lucha Libre and Cruiserweight, they done it really well. They had them going out for the excitement factor. And, you know, you still had the NWO stuff going on. But the Cruiserweights, they gave it something really different. But WWE Raw, Matt, it just seems so stale with them. They're not even making it exciting, you know. They're not making it must see. It's just being treated as a as basically a title that no one should really care about because it's the way it's presented. Even the colours, I don't know why they segregate it so much, and you can only get certain wrestlers going for it at the moment. They honestly, I think they could have done a better job with it, and I think Nitro is a really good example of how you work those smaller guys, that faster pace around all the big storylines. Like, it can be done. Go back and check that out if you want. We now got a question all the way from Texas, from Teddy. He says, I'm getting worried about the Goldberg-Lesnar match after I saw the slip on Raw. And knowing what happened last time, I'm interested to know if you both were producing this match, how would it go and what would you have them doing? Matt, I'm going to pass that one to you to begin with. How would you play this one if you were producing the match? How do you do it?
Well, you kind of hit on it a little bit earlier, didn't you? Where you said, like, don't do the test of strength stuff. Definitely. Don't slow the match down. And I think they should have already been working on this before. I mean, I've said on a previous podcast that I was hoping for more aggression from these two. I want to see this rivalry heated up. Right now, it just kind of seems like they're just fighting each other because they're told to. There doesn't seem to be a reason, really, for it, other than Brock Lesnar is supposed to have a huge ego and not like anyone having one up on him. I think they needed a little bit more meat in the story to get this up for a little bit more animosity towards each other, because that's the way I'd like to see them fight in a match. I'd like just to see them like striking, throwing fists and whatever, and I'd like to see the fight taken to Brock from Goldberg, because we haven't seen that for a long time. We haven't seen someone try and dominate on Brock. It's usually just Brock doing a lot of suplexes, doing all the heavy lifting in the match, and then if someone can take a bit of a beating, then everyone is satisfied.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, including us, were surprised how one-sided the Orton match was. Like, we thought it might be a bit more balanced, but by God, they didn't go that way at all. It was more like the Cena domination that we got at SummerSlam. For me, if I was doing this, well, everything I said earlier about not doing the test of strength, absolutely. And I think if I was WWE, I would say let's have Goldberg be maybe the first guy that he can't suplex. He keeps finding a way for him not to be suplexed, and that's the story of the match. But some way, somehow, Brock, I don't know, manages to get the victory with the F5 or whatever needs to come out. But the story is he never managed to get a suplex on him for a while. And go with that route. I mean, they could go another way, Matt. They could use the smoke and mirrors. They could do the whole thing they've done with Triple H and Sting last year, where they have a whole host of wrestlers coming out and shenanigans happening. I mean, now they've used Rusev. I'm kind of thinking to myself, oh, don't tell me he's going to come out and there's going to be all that happening as well, just because they're worried about the match itself. I really don't know. The only thing I will say that has to be a definite is Brock has to win. I'll say that much. Brock has to win, come hell or high water, because it would make zero sense for Goldberg to win it at this stage of his career, and all that they put in Brock would be a complete waste of time. So it has to be a Brock victory. Matt, I take it you're the same with the outcome.
Oh yeah, completely the same there. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't also be adverse to like a spear coming out really early on, just so that it kind of even things up. We could maybe say that Brock's like feeling that spear a little bit, because otherwise you just kind of feel that it really will be one-sided. Brock is people say he might be past his prime, but it's really, if he isn't that far past it, because he is really on top of his like physical condition. And Goldberg at 50, you're thinking, if you were going to look at this on paper, this shouldn't even be a match.
No, yeah. He's put also at the bottom. Also, what's your views on a possible match between Nakamura versus Undertaker at WrestleMania? Well, I say yes. I would like that. Matt?
Is this Undertaker Nakamura, you say?
Yeah, for WrestleMania next year.
That one definitely taken me by surprise. Now, I hadn't heard anything about that. But if it ever was like a fantasy kind of match that was coming up, I would like to see it. But there's so many other matches that I'd like to see the Undertaker have before he retires. It would be hard to sort of rank it, but I'd still be rooting for John Cena Taker. Yeah,
I think that's what most people. Okay, now a question from Chris. Do you see Hulk Hogan coming back to WWE now? If so, what could he do? So I'd sort of, yeah,